Welcome to Thinking Green. I'm Rana, and it's kind of a timely show today. You saw the new intro, and it has a picture, a photo of Bates Woods. And today we'll be talking about Bates Woods. Welcome Frida Berrigan and Amy Peddie, who are founding members of the Bates Friends Forever advocacy group for that park. So we're going to talk specifically about Bates Woods, but maybe a little bit about open space in New London and urban areas everywhere as well. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess we can start out like just talking about Bates Woods and what the impetus was for forming this group.
So myself and a number of other people who really enjoy utilizing the park space and were upset about it, the way that it was treated by the city, got together and started advocating for the park so that we can make the park better for everyone. So as with that, we have been meeting with others to talk about how to better the park. And with those meetings, we've started to create trails, create maps of trails. We have been having quarterly litter pickups. The next one is March 8th. We've been having hikes, and we plan on having more hikes now that the weather's warming up.
Now, is Bates Woods the largest public park in New London?
Yes, yes. People would say, well, the Arboretum is bigger, and it is. It's about 120 acres. But, of course, that's not all in New London, and it's not public. It's owned by Connecticut College.
It's also zoned institutional, so that if Connecticut College ever decided to do building on part of it, they would be able to, as long as they avoided wetlands and things like that. So it really isn't protected as open space the way a city park should be.
Right. Bates Woods will celebrate its 100th birthday in 2025. The city actually purchased it from the Bates family in 1925. The Bates family had it was farmland and woodlots and water sources for their farm operations. And the number that's in my head, and I have to go back and check, is $800.
I think that's right.
That the city bought 100 acres from the Bates family for. Now, some of that land, of course, is now, New London High School and the ball fields and sports facilities behind New London High School. But I think when New Londoners think about Bates Woods, they think about the pavilions, the Little League fields, the playscape, and the beautiful stone entrance there on Chester Street. And they don't venture beyond animal control, where, of course, animal control has the dog pound there, and but down beyond animal control is a veritable wonderland, parts of which we call Narnia, because it's so magical and beautiful, and you are in the middle of the city of New London, but you are so far from the urban landscape amid, ancient cave structures and geological structures, and then beautiful stoneworks that were built by New London's equivalent of the Works Progress Administration, one of the federal programs that helped get our economy out of the Great Depression. So there are these campsites with these beautiful old chimneys, and there's an old skate house with a huge fireplace and beautiful stone bridges. So there's a lot to discover back there. And one of the things that we've been doing over the course of the last year or so as we've become a group, an organization, is to, as Amy said, map these resources and encourage more people to experience them. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to who are, or even native New Londoners, which I am not a native New Londoner, who are like, Bates Woods? Like, what? Oh, you can go back there? Like, you can be in there? And say, yes, you can be. The city does not do much to make it feel welcoming. or accessible or even legal to be back there. There's nothing, if you come off Ashcraft, for example, there's nothing to say, you're about to enter New London's largest urban woodland. Welcome and enjoy. But that's where Bates Friends Forever is coming in to really encourage people. And we think that if somebody comes for one hike with us or one community cleanup with us, then they'll sort of fall in love and sort of be a part of, part of BFF, and then, a regular user. We find ourselves increasing the map of New London by introducing new people to Bates Woods Park.
Well, speaking of maps, it's actually, I think, hard to get a real map of Bates Woods. For me, it was a real revelation. The first time I was ever back in that part of New London was during the Bio Blitz, 25 years ago almost. And I had, seen the ball fields. I had actually seen the zoo like 30 years ago and had no idea of what was going on there. I guess I had maybe used the landfill once or twice too when that was open. But seeing the Bio Blitz there and walking around, it was just amazing. It's like, wow, there's like a whole lot here that you wouldn't know about.
Yeah, and we want more people to get exposed to and feel welcome in the park. And to that extent, we talked about the trails that we're marking, but I also want to create a mountain bike trail. That's what Buttermilk Loop is going to be, a mountain bike trail. And then this summer, in May, I'm going to be hosting a walk where we're going to walk around Bates and we're going to look at plants that are invasive to Bates that we can actually eat. And I'm going to make everyone sign waivers so that they don't sue us. But we're going to look at and identify plants that are edible and that are invasive, like mugwort, like
Japanese knotweed can substitute for rhubarb.
Yeah, exactly.
Although people, in my experience, when I made an apple knotweed cobbler, no one wanted to eat it.
Oh, really? I like
we can try it again this year.
Yeah,
Maybe
we should
this
try
group
it.
will be more adventurous than the first group I tried it out on.
Yeah, I've made knotweed pickles that were pretty good. I've made sog with knotweed that was really good. Just cooked up greens that was pretty good. And we'll look at smilax. I think we're going to be in good time for smilax, although it's not technically invasive. But we're going to have a good time looking at all the cool things that we can harvest from Bates that actually need to be harvested.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Well, we do have some slides here so that people who haven't actually been back behind Bates Woods can see like how gorgeous it is. So we can, just run through those and give people an idea because, it's. Oh yes.
Those are my children.
But the one on the right, that's a really cool stone pond that we actually found this winter when we were cleaning out the skate hut, which is not like a skate hut like you would have a skate park. It's more like it's an area where they used to flood wetlands and then use it for ice skating. And then there is a little hut there. It just doesn't have a roof, but it's got 3 sides, all stone, and then a huge fireplace so that I guess when you were ice skating and you got cold, you could go hang out there and warm up. And then there's that cool circular pond right next to it.
Wow. And there are, I was going to say there are a lot of stories I've heard of people who used to skate there, 50 years ago, not recently. So this is part of the stonework from the 1930s, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's on the Popsicle Peak Trail, and we hope that, as a group or the city can get around to finding some funding to restore the bridge because some of the rocks have fallen off. The path is very deteriorated, and so it needs some attention.
And at this point, these walls are probably close to 100 years old.
That's right.
So it's time for maintenance.
And this is part of, one of the most accessible picnic areas, and right behind that picture is a picnic chimney, which is in quite bad shape.
Yeah.
But then you'll also see, you know, kind of behind that picnic slab bench is the dumping, some of the dumping that Amy was talking about earlier. And this is what the City of New London would call construction laydown area. But as you can see, it's really, it goes up almost a story against, you know, 80-year-old, 100-year-old trees, definitely killing those trees. So we have some slides later on where, you know, we really foreground the city's laydown area.
And it's really too bad. When I first saw this picture small on my computer screen, I thought, oh, that's so beautiful, Bates Woods. And then you see it blown up, and it's like, yeah, it's Bates Woods, but it's got like a pile of dumping, you know, within the same area.
Right.
Yeah.
And then this is the paved road that goes through the park from the end of Ashcraft Road up into the up to Animal Control, and then the front of the park.
I think to the right of where that whoever took the picture is standing is the tupelo tree.
Yes. Yes.
There's a tupelo tree?
There's at least one. Yeah.
Yeah. There might be two.
Wow.
They're completely choked by poison ivy.
Yeah.
But,
Also not officially an invasive,
right.
but
Yeah.
problematic in places. And this is, you know, a couple seasons of the year in Bates Woods.
Yeah, the right is a cool berm that is, I think, off of the road, and then on the left, speaking of invasives, is a really nice willow tree that's growing out of a lot of the Phragmites and Japanese knotweed near the old capped landfill.
How much of the park is wetlands? Because I know there are a lot of parts of it that are very soggy.
I don't know a number.
I don't know a number either, but
The
significant.
Yeah, the area of the park is a little bit a topic of debate. I've seen anywhere from 65 to 75 acres, depending on which map you look at and who you talk to. But as far as wetlands, I think you could argue that more than 50% is wetlands. There's a part of the park that is super accessible with the road going through it. But then if you go past that and towards Waterford, it's mainly wetlands. And so I might say, yeah, 50% might be spot on.
And I'm thinking beyond the third pavilion, there is a water feature that
Yes.
was put in, I guess, to help drain that grassy developed area. Maybe 15, 20 years ago it was put in.
Oh, the one with the cattails.
Yeah, with the cattails
Yeah.
and red maples around the
Yeah.
perimeter. That was done by Public Works, and I think it was maybe around 2005, 6, 7, 8, something like that.
Bates Woods is the headwaters of Alewife Cove. So, you know, when we think about Ocean Beach and Alewife Cove and that waterway coming between New London and Waterford, you know, all of those drops of water start in Bates Woods, which is the kind of high ground there. So Fenger's Brook flows through Bates Woods, and then of course, you know, there's at least two, well, I guess with what you're talking about, 3 ponds, one of which, the old skating pond, oh no, there's 4 ponds, because there's one closer to Ashcraft. 6 acres was the area that they would flood for skating. So that gives you an indication. Yeah, I would say 50% of the park is either wetlands or ponds, all throughout the back of it.
Now, you've spent a lot of time in the park. How are people using it now?
It's a lot of hiking, a lot of people on dirt bikes, a lot of people bike through it, a lot of people use it for bird watching, a lot of people use it for exercise. There are several people that I see there regularly who walk up and down the path with weights. exercising, getting their steps in. Some folks like to use it for hiking. If you go further back, you can find some longer hiking trails. And then there's some great picnic spots. So myself and I know several others have, gone there to have a little picnic, little kid's birthday party type thing.
There's also, I've only seen them once, but people boulder and rock climb.
Oh yeah,
along
there are
some
a
of
couple
those-
areas that
yeah.
really have terrain.
Yep. So I saw these, young people with big mats, that they had hiked in with, who were bouldering, kind of right off the road between, between the road and the high school, or the Boulders housing development on which faces out on Jefferson. There's some fairly popular bouldering, rock climbing kind
Didn't
of
the
spots.
BioBlitz find that there was evidence that cave had been inhabited by people for like 2,000 years or something?
Yes.
Yeah. So
yeah.
cool.
Yep.
Yeah. The BioBlitz also found a ton of species in there. I forget the number, but it was impressive, like 4 figures.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have all those facts we uploaded to our website recently, www.batesfriendsforever.org.
Yep.
Oh, I would have put that up there if I know. Now
That's
okay.
okay.
I know.
Yeah.
It's very new.
So, what do you see as the big challenges that Bates Woods and all the people who want to get it restored to, the greatness of the 30s and 40s and 50s? What do you see as the obstacles you're facing?
Yeah, I think we're facing at least 3 obstacles. Parks in the city of New London fall under the management of the Public Works Department, which is chronically underfunded and understaffed. So that's one challenge. Another challenge is a mindset within the city of New London administration that sees open space as ripe for development, as not inherently valuable as green trees and blue water and open meadows, but is always looking to build on it and monetize it in some way. And then I think the third challenge is just that people don't know about it, or know about it and don't feel safe there. So we're kind of working on all 3 of those fronts and have a good relationship. We're really grateful to Public Works for their assistance in our cleanups. And hopefully if we get grants, we're able to kind of reimburse them for their man hours and also for what they spend to haul away the 9 tons of garbage that we've collected from the park in 2024. And then we're kind of trying to really engage with the city about this mindset, right? Like I think we talked at the top about the laydown area, right? We met with the mayor of New London, Michael Passero, and Director of Public Works, Brian Sear, probably in March of last year, March or April, after we discovered that the city intended to put a 4.5 acre solar array atop the capped landfill, and that would kind of significantly curtail public access to what has become a real feature of the park, which is this open meadow, about 12 acres atop the old landfill, which is meadowland, or savanna, as one bird watching expert called it.
Well,
But
that's
all-
where
Urban
BioBlitz
savanna,
had its
right.
center command, and that
Right.
was the first time I saw that part after that landfill was capped. That was tents and tables, and there actually are utilities to that area there's electricity. So yeah, it's just, you know, but I don't know. There have been a lot of other plans. So yeah, talk about the solar plan and, you know, what the status and what we can do.
Yeah.
From what we know, and we're not involved in the organization of the solar array, but the city has issued bids and hired a company that has already put solar arrays on top of other landfills. The issue with that being that they cannot pierce the membrane that caps the landfill. So this company has already done some work putting arrays on other landfills, and they plan on doing so here with about 4.5 acres being covered in panels. Apparently the city plans on using the construction waste that has been laid down. They intend to utilize that to build a road up to the solar array so that the company can access it. And as far as we understand, the power generated, which is I think just under a kilowatt, gigawatt, well, I don't, something, that unit is going to be fed back into the grid, the money from which is going to compensate the city for their own electrical usage. So it's not like it's important to note that they're taking some public land and they're going to put solar on it, which is great. But they're not going to decrease the mill rate. They're not going to create money that's going to go into public services. They're going to use that money for the city to save the city money, which is also great. We as a group would urge the city to look into other options for putting solar panels on places that are not public land, i.e. roofs, parking lots, like the Ocean Beach parking lot would be a great example. I would urge folks to think about how many of the city's buildings have solar panels on top of them, because there are other places where we could put solar panels, which is great, but we don't have to take public land for it. The mayor also points out that this is a capped landfill and no one should be doing anything near it, which is fine. But heretofore, the landfill has never had anything that restricts anyone from getting close to it, getting on top of it, or getting even near the monitoring wells. There's no signage, there's no fences. So effectively, the landfill is part of Bates Woods, and the population has been using it as such.
Going back kind of historically, right, when we've taken kind of this issue to city council, you know, the mayor has been very quick to say, you know, kind of some of what Amy said, that it's dangerous, that it isn't part of the park. But members of the fire department of the city of New London were all part of a model airplane flying club. And of course, the mayor is a retired firefighter and lawyer for the fire department. And so I imagine his friends would go up right to that same dangerous area and fly model airplanes to their heart's content. It's also a great place to fly kites. It is part of the park in every conceivable way. And if you know that it's a capped landfill, you can tell when you're entering it just because the landscape changes. But as Amy says, there's no signage, there's no warning, and as a capped landfill, it should be safe, right? And at City Council, we've heard these kind of dire proclamations, both from the mayor and from city councilors, about how, you know, you shouldn't be anywhere near it. And yet, if it was properly capped and kind of put to bed, which happened sometime in the late 1980s, early 1990s, there should be no threat to the public.
The city doesn't even have to monitor it anymore, according to DEEP.
Well, I have heard rumors that the monitoring was not done properly. But if that is the case, that the monitoring wasn't done properly, there are steps the city should be taking to address that rather than just saying, oh, no one should be there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there should at least be signs up, right? And there've never been signs warning people
and boundaries
away.
delineated.
And that is exactly where the BioBlitz had its central area, which was, covered a lot of the area, and it was a ton of tents, and I don't know. I mean, it was a landfill. Were they staked into the ground, or were they just weighted onto the ground?
Yeah.
I have no recollection at all.
It's my understanding that you have to go at least several inches before you get to the layer
That membrane layer.
Yeah, I don't think anyone putting down any kind of stake up there is going to pierce it. But we've been trying to look for the documents pertaining to how the landfill was capped at deep. And I believe we weren't able to find exactly the procedure that they utilized for capping and putting soil over the landfill.
We did find some extraordinary documents when we went to the Deep Library in Hartford, including two separate memos from the chief of the fire department begging Public Works to stop burning tires in the landfill area, because the Public Works employees would set fire to the garbage when it got to be too much. And then, of course, the neighbors of the park would smell burning tires, which is one of the worst smells.
It is. Probably really toxic.
And very, very terrible. And would call the fire department, say, come, there's a fire in Bates Woods. And the fire department would come, and there would be their, fellow city workers were responsible for these fires. And Public Works at that point was not feeling very accountable to the fire department or to anybody else in the management of this landfill. So what we didn't find the procedures and the plans and the implementation of such plans for the proper capping of the landfill, but we did find 100 years of complaints by citizens of New London about the smell and the noise and the vermin related to this landfill, and then of course these fires, both those intentionally set and the spontaneous fires that erupt when garbage is poorly handled. So the kind of short-sightedness of citing a landfill in the middle of a beautiful parkland, and in fact in the wetlands, right? Like that, the garbage landfill started in wetlands. So there's some original crimes here that we're still grappling with, 80 something, 70 years later.
I don't know when the landfill was opened, but it was in use for a long time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We have some pictures, some slides of dumping in the park, and I think I'd like to show them. It's only a couple of them, but I remember maybe 10, 15 years ago looking at the park and seeing a lot of the kind of thing we see on the left here, people dumping illegally, because it's a big park and it has some areas that are sort of, along the edge. There have been homeless encampments in the park. And so that kind of dumping I remember seeing a lot. The dumping on the right looks like more like lay down area. So it sort of has gotten, increased, because it isn't just the illegal dumping, it's the legal dumping, I guess, the legal but bad idea dumping that we're seeing.
For a while, the city in that area on the right, the city, until about 2021, the city was driving in with trucks of yard waste, and they were dumping it there. And then after a few months, I think twice a year, they would come in with a tub grinder and they would grind everything up into wood chips and they would haul it off. And now, instead of dumping wood, which you can still see some of that wood, but you can't really get to it because there's all these piles of what they've now dumped, which is concrete and asphalt, rocks, and you can oftentimes, or you used to be able to see Kelowna Concrete come there and dumping, which I think is, they're not with the city, are they? Is that a private company?
They were contracted with the city to do a lot of the sidewalk building and repairing work. And I believe that at some point they were also dumping the old granite curbing. There was a river of granite curbing at one point, some of which has been beautifully reused by Fresh. On Cottage Street, you can see some of the layers of that. But there was a river of it all up that hill, up towards the high school.
Oh, it's still there.
There is still some there, but some of that, it went to better use. But some of the messier stuff, like concrete, I think it might have been part of the agreement that was made with Kelowna that the city would get a good price for, in order to do that. They made it easier for Kelowna to dump these stuff. So this just shows also the two different kinds of dumping we're seeing. The illegal dumping, is sort of out of sight, out of mind, and people who don't want to pay a little bit to the transfer station will just dump things. And things on the right, which might be a more official kind of dumping.
Yeah, and that excavator is actually still in use. They move it around. It gets kind of stuck there with all the hops growing over it. But that's where they used to dump the wood before mulching it up with the tub grinder, which honestly used to be a really fun thing for anyone that likes looking for mushrooms in the woods. That was a fun thing to look at, yeah.
So the community has kind of rallied behind the work that you've started doing at Bates Woods. Any of the cleanups and walks that I've gone to have had a lot of people there. Yeah. So I want to just ask, what do you think is the draw for so many people? Is it that more people than we think about live near Bates Woods, or is it just like a different place that we always wanted?
Yeah, I think it's both, and I think people want to be outside. They want to connect with nature. It's good for all of us. A lot of people live within just a hop, skip, and a jump from Bates Woods. There's low-income senior housing. There's low-income privately managed housing along Jefferson. There's low to moderate income homeowners along Coleman Street and the little streets that dead end into the park. And so people sometimes just need a little encouragement, an invitation, a welcome mat to explore outside of their comfort zone. And so we're offering that to some people concerned about the city's use and misuse of open space. The fact that we tried to fight the solar field siting in Bates Woods Park and talk about what we will lose if that infrastructure is built there. I think that attracted some people, but some people just come in because it's fun to be outside, it's fun to explore, and the work that Amy has done along with some students at Connecticut College in mapping and blazing trails really is that welcome mat. Look, you can explore, you can get lost, but not completely lost. You can go in, but you'll come back out again. We've plotted a trail to the back of Clark Lane Middle School, which which feels really far away from Bates Woods, and in fact is just like right there. So
Bates Woods is a gift that no one knows that we have.
yeah,
And when you start telling people that there is a 75-acre park that you can use to get from Clark Lane Middle School to the high school, people don't believe you, because it's only really wealthy metropolitan areas that have all these cool greenways. We don't expect that in New London. And so it's so fun that you can go from Coleman and without seeing any cars, you can walk all the way to the high school or to Clark Lane, and you can be in the middle of the woods and not even know that you're in the middle of a city.
I had been going to ask you about the mapping project because there are a lot of maps already done. And so what areas, what kind of trails are you mapping? I'm guessing there are all kinds, from a corridor from Clark Lane to New London High School to some more out of wildflower loops or whatever. So what kind of trails are there? What can people?
There are a lot of trails. There's anything from deer paths to trails that have been recently cut through Phragmites and knotweed to like the pavement paths. And so what we're doing right now is we're mapping the paths that have been there for longer, that are more established. So paths that are newer, that require a whole lot of upkeep, like cutting down Phragmites or knotweed. Those we're not mapping just yet. We want them to get more established so that if, for some reason no one maintains the trail for half a year and someone takes the map and goes into the woods, they're not going to get lost in the middle of a knotweed forest. So for right now, we have at least 5 trails that we have mapped, and we're working with 2 college students from Conn College, and they're helping to map those. We should have the signage up fairly soon, but there's about 5 trails so far that we have mapped, and then we have another 3 in the works.
Wow.
Yeah, and hopefully once we get that all done, I'll have a number for how many miles we're covering.
That'll be great.
Yeah.
So one time I came on one of the walks, and there were a lot of all-terrain vehicle riders there, and I see whenever people in New London complain about these loud riders, most of them say, oh, they should go to Bates Woods. And I feel like there is a place in Bates Woods for them, but not necessarily on every path. Is there any, do you have any ideas about making designated ATV pathways or trails for Bates Woods and any people-only trails?
I feel like as a group that's not really our scope, because when it comes to motorized vehicles, there's a lot that comes into play with insurance and liability. And so it would be too much for us to consider ourselves to be arbiters of that when it's city property. We are really grateful to the city that they support us in what we are doing. The city has supported the grants that we've submitted recently and supported the way that we're using the land and making it better. But we don't want to step on anyone's toes and say, you can use ATVs here, but you can't over here. That's something that only the city can really weigh in on.
Right, and the only thing you can do really is like environmental manipulation, maybe some paths being narrow and not as convenient or steep or rocky.
Well, yeah. We know that ATVs, dirt bikes, and motorized vehicles, they tend to erode trails, and when you're using a trail near a wetland, that turns into, especially once you get under the water table, now you just turn into creating ponds. Yes. And so hopefully the folks using the motorized vehicles think about this, because when you turn a trail into a pond, it means that you can't utilize it for pedestrian traffic.
We have been, whenever we see folks who are using ATVs or motorbikes, I've made a point of being aggressively friendly, inviting them to park cleanups, talking about, there's a kind of an area, we call it the party pad, where people kind of congregate, We've made a point of putting a garbage can there and making sure that it's emptied. We've asked the city to deploy a garbage can and empty it regularly. That request has not been fulfilled, and so we clean up the party pad. We put our signs there in both English and Spanish, and then we talked to them a lot about the solar field and how that would change their access to the park. If there was a 12-acre fenced area right across that meadow on the top. So we're kind of looking at them as other users of the park, and as Amy said, not wanting to be the kings of the park to decree where people can go and not go, but kind of seeing them as other people who value the ability to be outside and kind of be free to explore. And while that's not how I want to be outside and exploring, they look like they're having a really good time.
They do. Now we have some slides of some different community events that we can show people, coming to the park. I don't know if that map really is that accurate, but and I don't remember was this one of the walks?
That's with the Nature Conservancy?
Yeah, this is where we introduced staff of the Nature Conservancy. That's Anjali, Drew, and Jess, kind of in the middle, closest to the sign, and walked all through Bates Woods with members of that important conservation organization. And then that's Mateo Martinez Good, Jeff Butler kneeling, and then that's me on the other side there. And yeah, that sign, which faces away from the public, is not very accurate, but is beautiful.
It's very interesting because it shows parks, it shows park benches, it shows stone benches, it shows ponds. I don't think the aperture is super correct on it, but it is very cool.
Yeah. And I know there are other pictures of some cleanups, I think.
Yes, this is the whole lacrosse, actually not even the whole lacrosse team for Connecticut College.
Oh, wow.
Men's lacrosse. On that day we had 96 people participate in a cleanup. I want to say that was early November, so also wasn't
that's right.
Super warm. And on that day we fished 30 tires out of different crannies and corners and waterways within the park.
Those boys got really into getting tires out of places.
Super excited about it.
Yeah.
And a team also cleaned up a number of abandoned encampments. As you mentioned, people do live in the park at different times. But when we knew that the encampment was completely abandoned, we cleaned it up. Oh yes, this is Christmas Eve in Bates Woods.
That's the skate hut fire structure, and then on the right is another part of that circular pond structure that we discovered when we were cleaning up this skate hut. Super cool. You can see how some of the rock has fallen away. So again, this is another instance of, it's been abandoned and vines have grown on it and gotten in between the chinking on the stones, the mortar. And so again, another really cool stone fixture that definitely needs some restoration.
We had some really fun conversations with Alicia Primmer when she was the director of New London Landmarks about grants that would restore the picnic areas in this skate house. And sadly, New London Landmarks is looking for a new executive director now. And so, but we're hopeful that that and an oral history of Bates Woods would be two things that we would love to work with New London Landmarks on.
So this on the left is the party pad, and we made for our events, we made these cool signs that have QR codes that in both English and Spanish, they have, sort of a prompt, and then you can scan it and see more information and the answers. So this on the left is the party pad, and so we had some information about if you're enjoying it, go to the Inland Wetlands Commission that was coming up. On the right-hand side is a picture of one of the picnic areas, and then behind it is that cool cave that the BioBlitz discovered and that has been inhabited by humans for 2,000 years.
Now, the little signs that you have questions on, how many of those do you have, and what are some of the questions?
I think we have 5 or 6 of them. And one is about skating, and kind of the people who were able to ice skate on the park pond back in the 50s and 60s and 70s. And it links to a newspaper article about New Londoners enjoying skating. And then there's another one that links to the BioBlitz and all of the different species that the community found on that day. And then there's one about the purchase of Bates Woods by the City of New London, back in 1925.
Now, what do you have going on if there are people watching this and say, I want to get involved?
We have a lot going on. I would urge anyone that wants to get involved to check out our website at www.batesfriendsforever.org. And there you can fill out a contact form, which will get emailed to us, and I can add their email address to the newsletter. And we send out a newsletter. It's very short. It just has on it all of the events coming up, such as litter pickups, hikes, and events. So it goes out every month on the 20th to anyone that said that they're interested in learning more about the group.
And there is a cleanup coming up. Actually, we're taping the show a few days before it's going to air, but we have a flyer for the cleanup that's going to happen on March 8th. Mm-hmm. And we hope people can make it. And how else what else are you anticipating as weather gets warmer?
Yep. We're committed to having these cleanups quarterly, and we partner with the City of New London on them for their help.
And they provide tools and stuff.
They provide their cleanup trailer, which New Londoners can you can bring this trailer to your own community for neighborhood cleanups. So we have another one scheduled for June, and then November. And then November.
Yep.
And so those community cleanups happen quarterly, and then we have a robust schedule of monthly hikes. And if we get this DEP grant, we're going to be, we'll be working on invasives for the whole summer, knocking down knotweed, pulling in vines out of trees, and we're going to need a lot of help with that, and then planting native species.
Not to mention getting participants for your native plant potluck, right?
Right, yes. I
know. We also want to do some potlucks, some cookouts. That would be great in the season where it's warm but not so buggy. So maybe the shoulders, so the spring and fall.
And oh my God, sorry.
We also have Instagram and Facebook page. Instagram is Bates Friends Forever. I think that's it. It's also connected on our website, batesfriendsforever.org. And you can also go to that website to find our Facebook page, too.
Well, thank you.
Yes,
I think we've come to the end of our time. But people who are watching, whether you come to one of the events or just want to go explore Bates Woods, by yourself on a whim, there really is a lot more to Bates Woods than the pavilions and the fields and the animal control.
Truly.
Yes, explore. Be not daunted by the lack of interpretation center and welcome signs. But it is a public park, and the public is welcome in Bates Woods.
And you never know what you'll discover when you're walking there. Some seasons, you mentioned the tupelo tree, but there are some seasons that there are really beautiful native rhododendrons and azaleas in bloom.
Yes.
That's kind of my favorite time of year there.
Love
So
it.
thank you,
Thanks, Rana. Thanks for having us.
and we'll see you in Bates Woods.
See you in
Thanks.
Bates Woods.